Everyone knows The Rock. The biggest box office draw on the planet. The man who turned pro wrestling into a Hollywood career worth billions. Fast and Furious, Jumanji, Moana. The guy sells tickets the way he used to sell pay-per-view buys, by sheer force of personality. But here's what nobody talks about. Hidden underneath all those franchises, all those sequels, all those Netflix specials, there's a different Dwayne Johnson. A darker one, a weirder one, sometimes a better one. Today we're counting down the 10 most underrated movies Dwayne Johnson has ever made, the ones that got buried, ignored, written off, or just plain forgotten. Some of these flopped. Some made money but got no respect. And at least one of them might be the best performance he's ever given. Let's get into it. Number 10. Journey to The Mysterious Island, 2012. We're starting with one that nobody defends. And honestly, that's exactly why it's on this list. Journey to The Mysterious Island is a kid's adventure movie. Michael Caine, Josh Hutcherson, Vanessa Hudgens, and The Rock on a secret island full of giant creatures. Ratings in Rotten Tomatoes got a rough 43%. Critics called it cartoonishly dull. Audiences said it was too intense for little kids and too stupid for everyone else. And yet, this movie made over $335 million worldwide on a $79 million budget. It's a genuine crowd pleaser that delivered exactly what it promised, Dwayne Johnson being charming and enormous while kids watched in pure delight. What makes it underrated isn't that it's secretly great cinema. It's that Johnson is legitimately wonderful here. Warm, funny, physically committed, doing the pet pop of love bit with total sincerity. It's one of the few times on screen where you actually believe he could be a fun stepfather. The Rock isn't trying to be cool. He's just likable, genuinely likable. For what it is, it works. And nobody gives it credit for that. Number 9. Southland Tales, 2006. Now we go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Way opposite. Southland Tales is one of the strangest movies ever greenlit by a major studio. Directed by Richard Kelly, the guy behind Donnie Darko, this apocalyptic sci-fi satire is set in a fractured near-future America, and it is absolutely, completely unhinged. Johnson plays Boxer Centauros, an amnesiac action movie star who wanders into a bizarre conspiracy involving alternate realities, political intrigue, and the end of the world. The film bombed catastrophically. It scored a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences walked out confused and annoyed. But look closer at what Johnson actually does in this movie. This was 2006. He wasn't Dwayne Johnson, the franchise superstar, yet. He was still The Rock, still figuring out what kind of actor he wanted to be. And here he goes completely against type, playing a confused, anxious, genuinely vulnerable man who doesn't know who he is. No muscles save the day moment. No smoldering charisma. Just a man who's lost. The movie itself is a mess. But Johnson's performance is a revelation that almost no one saw. Number 8. GI Joe Retaliation, 2013. GI Joe Retaliation has a reputation as a dumb action sequel, and look, some of that is fair. But here's what it did right. Dwayne Johnson, playing Roadblock, the heavy machine gunner and field leader of the Joe team. Johnson brings a gravitas and physicality to the role that the entire first GI Joe movie desperately lacked. He's commanding. He's actually funny. And the film around him, directed by John M. Chu, yes, the future director of Wicked and Crazy Rich Asians, is smarter than it looks. What the critics mostly missed, Retaliation is less interested in Johnson than in the moral redemption of Storm Shadow, the cool evil ninja played by Lee Byung-hun. Johnson almost takes a backseat to let a genuinely interesting subplot breathe. He's secure enough in the role to let others shine. Is it a great film? No. But Johnson earned his paycheck here, and more people should revisit it now that Chu has a proper legacy. Number 7. Walking Tall, 2004. Here's one that got completely swallowed up by the early 2000s action movie rush and never found the audience it deserved. Walking Tall is a loose remake of the 1973 classic. Johnson plays Chris Vaughn, a special forces soldier who comes home to his small town in Washington state and finds it destroyed, overrun by a crooked casino owner played by Neil McDonough who's turned the whole community into something rotten. So Vaughn runs for sheriff, with a big piece of lumber as his weapon of choice. It's 86 minutes of pure, efficient, deeply American storytelling. No CGI explosions, no franchise setup, just a righteous man, a corrupt town, and a 2x4. What makes this underrated is how perfectly it showcases Johnson's everyman quality, the thing studios have spent 20 years ignoring in favor of making him a demigod. Here, he's a son who loves his family, a veteran who wants his town back, a man driven by something real. The movie understands what Walking Tall the original understood. Audiences love watching a good man pushed to his limit decide enough is enough. It's lean, it's satisfying, and it's one of the cleanest action movies Johnson ever made. Number 6, Snitch, 2013. This one surprised a lot of people and then got forgotten almost immediately. Snitch is not really an action movie, despite the marketing trying to sell it as one. It's a dramatic thriller about a father, Johnson's character John Matthews, whose teenage son is arrested in a sting operation and faces a mandatory minimum of 10 years in prison. To save his kid, Matthews makes a deal with the DEA. He'll go undercover and help them catch a cartel member. There are almost no fight scenes. Johnson spends most of the movie terrified, driving an 18-wheeler into dangerous situations, looking like a man completely out of his depth. He's sweating, he's scared, he's not winning. And it works. This was the first Dwayne Johnson action movie that was primarily a serious character film, and it holds up. It's based on a true story. It makes a pointed critique of mandatory minimum sentencing laws, and Johnson carries the dramatic weight with far more restraint than you'd ever expect. The marketing undercut it by selling something it wasn't. Audiences came for The Rock. But they got a film that wanted to be something more. Number 5, Pain and Gain, 2013. Here's the most complex movie on this list, and the most divisive. Pain and Gain is Michael Bay's dark comedy based on the true story of the Sun Gym Gang, a group of Miami bodybuilders in the 1990s who decided the American dream was taking too long, so they turned to kidnapping, extortion, and murder. Mark Wahlberg is the ringleader, Anthony Mackie is the muscle, and Dwayne Johnson plays Paul Doyle, a cocaine-addicted, born-again Christian ex-con who is simultaneously the funniest and most tragic character in the movie. Johnson is absolutely electric here. Doyle is terrifying and pathetic and somehow sympathetic all at once. He finds religion and then immediately loses it the moment the money and drugs start flowing. Johnson plays his dissent with a kind of helpless authenticity, like a man who genuinely wants to be good but can't locate the part of himself that knows how. Critics were split. Rotten Tomatoes landed at 49%, largely because Bay's glossy visual style keeps the horror of what really happened at arm's length. But Johnson? He's the reason people revisit this movie. It's the most morally complex character he's ever played, and he nailed it. Number 4, Faster, 2010. This one haunts film writers who pay attention to acting. Faster came out in 2010, right in the middle of Johnson's transition from family-friendly star to the franchise heavyweight he'd become. Nobody was ready for what they got. Johnson plays a character named Driver, that's it. Just Driver. A man released from prison who immediately begins hunting down the men who killed his brother. One by one, no hesitation, no monologue, no mercy. What makes Driver unlike any character Johnson has ever played before or since is the silence. Driver speaks when it's absolutely necessary and not a word more. He doesn't crack jokes, he doesn't charm anyone. He exists purely to complete a mission, and Johnson communicates everything, grief, rage, self-doubt, with almost no dialogue at all. The movie came and went in 2010, largely dismissed as a generic revenge thriller in the post-Taken wave of unstoppable man movies. And on the surface, it is that. But the performance inside it is something special. Johnson showed every director in Hollywood exactly what he was capable of, and then barely got another chance to do it for 15 years. Until The Smashing Machine. If you've never seen Faster, watch it for Johnson alone. You'll understand what we lost every time he signed another franchise check. Number 3. Be Cool, 2005. Be Cool is not a good movie, let's be clear about that up front. The sequel to Get Shorty mostly squanders its premise and its cast, and it's been rightfully criticized for humor that hasn't aged well. But buried inside it is one of the most genuinely funny supporting performances in Dwayne Johnson's entire career. Johnson plays Elliot Wilhelm, a gay Samoan bodyguard for a pair of crooked music producers who also secretly dreams of being an actor. It's a small role. It could have been a throwaway. Instead, Johnson plays Elliot with complete sincerity and surprising depth, giving him genuine ambition, a real desire to be seen as more than muscle, and a comedic timing that never once winks at the audience. The film's treatment of Elliot as a character is uncomfortable by modern standards. He's often the butt of the other character's cruelty. But what Johnson does is refuse to let Elliot be diminished. He plays him with dignity. When Elliot finally gets his audition shot for a Nicole Kidman movie, Johnson makes you actually root for him. It's a bit of acting that deserves far more recognition than the movie around it will ever earn. Number 2. The Rundown, 2003. If you want to understand exactly when Dwayne Johnson became a movie star, not a wrestler in movies, not a personality in a franchise, this is the moment. The Rundown is a 2003 action comedy directed by Peter Berg. Johnson plays Beck, a bounty hunter sent to the Amazon to retrieve his boss's rebellious son, played by Sean William Scott, and bring him home. What he finds instead is Christopher Walken hamming it up as a gold-obsessed villain, a resistance movement led by Rosario Dawson, and a jungle full of people who want him dead. The film has an Arnold Schwarzenegger cameo in the opening scene, Schwarzenegger literally passing the action star torch to Johnson, and from that moment forward, The Rock earns it completely. What separates The Rundown from Johnson's other early work is the chemistry and the physical comedy. Johnson and Scott are perfectly cast as reluctant partners. Beck is tough but not humorless, and Johnson finds a rhythm of straight man and scene stealer that he's never quite matched since. It disappeared quickly in 2003, undercut by poor marketing and a crowded release window. But it's been quietly building a following for 2 decades. It recently climbed to number 4 on Tubi's Top Movies chart, more than 20 years after it came out. One of the great unsung action comedies of the 2000s. Number 1. The Smashing Machine, 2025. This is the one. This is the Dwayne Johnson performance that critics and audiences who saw it almost universally agreed might be the best thing he's ever done, and most of the world hasn't seen it yet. The Smashing Machine is an A24 film directed by Benny Safdie, one half of the duo behind Uncut Gems and Good Time, 2 of the most intense films of the last decade. Johnson plays Mark Kerr, a real man, a dominant early MMA fighter whose career and personal life collapsed simultaneously under the weight of addiction, injury, and a sport that had no roadmap for what came after the fights. Emily Blunt co-stars. The tone is raw, unvarnished, and completely uninterested in making Johnson look cool. And Johnson delivers completely, totally, without a single moment of playing to the crowd. Every reviewer who covered it said the same thing. This is transformative. This is what a great performance looks like. This is what we never knew Dwayne Johnson could do because nobody gave him the material or the director to unlock it. The film is set between 1997 and 2000, the beginning of the UFC era, a world that was just as brutal behind the scenes as it was in the cage. Johnson plays Kerr's rise and collapse with a physicality that goes beyond muscle and into genuine vulnerability. The fighter who couldn't be stopped in the ring was being destroyed outside of it. Johnson makes you believe both halves of that truth at the same time. If this is the movie that finally makes the world take Dwayne Johnson seriously as an actor, not just a star, not just a brand, then everything on this list was worth the wait. Here's what this list proves. Dwayne Johnson has always had more range than Hollywood let him use. Every time he got a real character, a desperate father in Snitch, a grieving brother in Faster, a broken champion in The Smashing Machine, he showed up. Every time he got a director who pushed him, Michael Bay in Pain and Gain, Benny Safdie in The Smashing Machine, Peter Berg in the rundown, he delivered. The tragedy of his career isn't that he sold out. It's that the machine around him ran so fast and so loud, paying audiences billions of dollars for the same character over and over, that there was never really a reason to slow down and ask, what else can this man do? Well, now we know. If you've never seen any of these movies, start with the rundown and work your way up to Fast, then find the smashing machine. You might walk away seeing Dwayne Johnson the same way he always deserved to be seen. Not just as The Rock, but as an actor. Drop a comment. Which one of these did you already know? And which one surprised you? Don't forget to subscribe, else you'll miss our next countdown. If there's a Dwayne Johnson deep cut we missed, let us know below. We'll see you in the next one.